What's up, Newsers? It's the Russian dude. Moscow and other cities of Russia went totally dark for some time during last several weeks, especially during Victory Parade on May 9th. The official version was to prevent Ukrainian drones from spoiling Putin's favorite holiday. But in reality, the Kremlin just successfully tested literally kill switch for Russia's connection to the global world. Just imagine, living in a country where your phone is basically your wallet, your taxi dispatcher, your map, your bank branch, your government office, your work archive, your family photo album, emergency survival kit, everything. We do everything on our phones, and then one day the same government that pushed everyone into this digital world a decade ago starts breaking the connection because it suddenly decided that the internet is too dangerous to just leave alone and just existed without any official supervision. That is exactly what is happening in Russia right now, where rolling mobile internet outages, online bans, VPN restrictions, constant interference with digital services in general, all of this have exposed one very uncomfortable truth. Russia built one of the most convenient digital societies in the world, but it is ruled by people who are still mentally living 1999. And this is not just some annoying technical problem where people cannot open a website or load the video. No, this is much deeper. For years, official propaganda and voluntarily regime supporters had one final argument left. Yes, Russia is authoritarian, yes, politics is controlled, we cannot say anything, courts and elections look decorative, but at least daily life is technologically advanced. The internet is fast, banking is easy, taxi apps work, payments are instant, and online services are just in general more convenient than in many parts of Western Europe, especially Germany. That is the example that they give in the articles I was reading. But now even that argument is being destroyed by the government itself, because once dysfunctional state starts treating the internet as a political threat, the same technology that made life easier becomes a vulnerability. The more digital the country becomes, the more damage the state can cause when it starts pulling wires, blocking services, and treating normal connectivity as a security risk. And all this is the main story of today. Russia did not slowly modernize while keeping old offline systems alive. It jumped from passbook ledgers and old-school paperwork almost straight into instant transfers, FacePay, taxi apps, cloud storage, online banking, digital government services, all of this. It skipped many intermediate stages somehow, buried old habits, and allowed offline infrastructure to disappear completely. So when the Kremlin now damages mobile internet, it is not just limiting entertainment, it is damaging the operating system itself of modern Russian life. Russians have spent years laughing at Western Europe for being slow, old-fashioned, and strangely allergic to convenience, especially once again Germany, where even today Russian tourists and immigrants are shocked by how many basic things still require cash, phone calls, letters, paper forms, and appointments that cannot simply be solved just through the app. For a person from Moscow, this can look almost absurd. You walk into a large restaurant, not some tiny kebab stand on the side of the road, but a real place with tables, waiters, proper seating, and suddenly there is a chance that they might not even accept a card while you finish eating. You need something from the government, another example, and instead of clicking through a sleek digital portal, you may have to send an actual paper letter. You want to book something, fix something, order something, or ask something. Instead of a chat window, you have to call. From the Russian point of view, this looks archaic. But here's the catch. This backwardness preserved offline infrastructure, at least in Germany. In Germany, if someone is old, paranoid, or simply hates modern technology, they can still function without a smartphone. They can live in this society. They can read printed newspapers, use phone books, order from catalogs, book taxis by phone, send letters to the government, and just in general interact with institutions through systems that may be slow, but they still at least exist. Russia did completely the opposite. Russia moved incredibly fast from old offline habits into full digital dependency. In the late 2000s, for example, and early 2010s, the Russian internet and banking system developed so quickly that people jumped from physical transfers and also even old passbook-style banking into instant money transfers, which require only just a phone number. Online payments also were introduced, app-based services, eventually even FacePay technology. That leap was impressive, but it came as a trap. When everything becomes digital, the old system disappears. People stop carrying cash, they stop storing files locally, they stop memorizing routes, keeping paper maps, calling for services. They just in general stop thinking about offline backups, because for years the internet simply worked. And this is why the current outages are so painful. They hit a society that already reorganized itself around constant connectivity. In Russia, the internet is no longer just a luxury or a toy or a means of entertainment. It is basic infrastructure, almost like electricity. It is connected to work, banking, pensions, utilities, transport, maps, documents, family communications, photos, and just ordinary urban movement. So when the authorities disrupt mobile internet, they are not just fighting foreign platforms or opposition activists as they usually tend to claim. They are disrupting the daily life of millions of ordinary people. And this is where Russia's digital strength starts turning into digital weakness. Because once you rely on something significantly, removing it hurts a lot. And no one wants to go back, obviously. That offline Russia disappeared long time ago. So guys, one more quick thing to mention is that I asked Cloud if the US and China end up in a full Cold War, which countries actually emerges ahead. What it gave me back, no analyst on TV had broken it down so clearly. Sector winners, capital flow shifts, currency impact, 5-year outlook, 90 seconds flat. And I do this for everything now. Russia-Ukraine endgames, Middle East oil choke points, why BRICS keeps adding new members, why Africa is suddenly the continent every single superpower is fighting over. Each one of these analysts' great breakdown is simply delivered to me in minutes. Then I asked Cloud to turn this research into full presentation, slides, charts, visuals. It built the entire deck itself. No design skills, no code, and this is just the beginning, this is just the start. People are building live geopolitical dashboards as cloud artifacts, plugging in connectors that pull real-time data from the web, even running AI agents that track world events on autopilot. If you want to learn how to do all of this properly, I know exactly where to, guys, send you. The world's first Cloud-A-thon, a 2-day deep dive into cloud, its user cases, 10 plus other AI tools happening this weekend from 10 AM to 7 PM Eastern Standard Time, and I have just 1,000 free seats on a limited time. 10 million people across the world have already attended this and rated it 4.9 out of 5 on Trustpilot, and I would highly recommend you guys take this as well. In the workshop, you will do deep research on cloud, build your own artifacts and dashboards, create full presentations using cloud, set up cloud connectors like Indeed to automate your job search, master 10 plus AI tools, build custom GPTs and agents, generate visuals and videos with AI, and at the end of it be in a situation to automate your entire week. And if you sign up right now as a bonus, you will get 50 secret cloud codes that would make it a god-level tool for you. An AI prompt library also, and a personalized AI toolkit builder all for free. The best part is that you get mentored by leaders from Microsoft, Google, Amazon and Nvidia. What you learn in 2 days will change the next 2 years of your life. Sign up now before they sell out, link in description, scan the QR code you see on the screen, join the WhatsApp community before seats close up. Thanks so much Outskill for sponsoring this video, and now back to the program. Now imagine this. About 15 years ago, a normal Russian city resident could stand by the road, raise a hand, catch a random cab, negotiate the price, and get wherever they needed to go without any app, GPS, rating system or digital payment. It was the whole street culture. A passenger would say something like, Baumanskaya for 200. The driver would say, no, 500. The passenger would argue and too expensive, and eventually they would agree somewhere between like 250, 300 rubles. Because that was how urban transport often worked. I personally still remember it. Well, that world is gone now. The random cab drivers who could spot a raised hand from far away and cut across traffic to pick up a passenger disappeared, because taxi apps make them completely unnecessary. The habit of haggling disappeared, the habit of knowing the normal price from A to Z of a route disappeared as well. The habit of simply catching a ride from the street is absolutely long forgotten. Now, if the taxi app does not work, there is often no real backup. People are not magically transported back into the old Moscow where everyone knows how to improvise. That old system, once again, is gone, and people have already lost the habit of using it. The same thing happened with driving. In the past, people used road signs, remembered routes, asked for directions. sometimes even carried a used paper maps. Well, today many drivers depend almost completely on GPS. Take away that navigation, and for many people it feels like taking away their eyes. The car still works, the road exists, but the skill of moving through the city without digital help has become weaker, if non-existent completely. And this is not because Russians are uniquely helpless. This is what technology does everywhere when it works reliably for long enough. People simply adapt. Nobody wakes up and says, "Let me prepare just in case for the day when my government decides mobile internet is a political problem." Well, probably some people in Russia do it right now, but nobody else in the world probably nowhere. Nobody downloads their entire life from the cloud every week just in case the state starts breaking connectivity. And nobody prints out maps of every possible route like they are preparing for a post-digital expedition. In the late 2000s and early 2010s, many people still had huge offline collections of movies, music, MP3 files, DVDs. You guys probably some still do have, I do. Then internet traffic just became cheap, online coverage expanded, streaming and cloud services became normal, and suddenly old interfaces like Winamp, became nostalgia. Why store thousands of songs if everything is just online? Why keep films on a hard drive if you can just stream them? Why save work files locally if cloud storage is faster, cheaper, and available literally everywhere? But once everything moves online, the internet stops being entertainment and once again becomes survival infrastructure. It is tied to monthly pension payments, bills, work, communication, transport, access to services, everything. During the 2020 pandemic, for example, Moscow authorities monitored quarantined senior citizens through a phone app, which says everything about the assumptions of this modern Russian state. Even the government assumed that a smartphone and a stable internet access were basic parts of life. And now the same government is damaging that assumption. It helped normalize digital dependency, benefited from it, used it for control, and now acts as if people can simply live without it because the political leadership is scared of what an open internet allows. This is like building an entire city around elevators, and then just deciding that elevators are too dangerous, you never know when they're gonna fall, and just tell everyone, on 67th floor, guys, enjoy the stairs. The state allowed digital life to become mandatory, and now it is interfering with the system people cannot easily replace. And for Putin, who almost never uses internet himself, this might not sound like something serious. Well, in fact, unfortunately for him, it pretty is. At this point, you might be wondering why the Russian leadership would damage something so important. Well, and the answer is simple but disturbing. The main decision maker does not live like the people affected by his decisions. Vladimir Putin came to power in 1999, when the internet in Russia was still mostly a niche space for tech enthusiasts, programmers, students, and people willing to suffer through slow connections and strange early websites. Probably you visited some of them. Back then, not knowing how to use the internet was normal. A president who could not log in did not look strange because most people did not rely on the internet for daily life. In 1999, for example, if you wanted to sell a used car, a newspaper ad would work 10 times, 100 times better than an online listing. If you needed a dentist, the Yellow Pages had hundreds of options, while the one dentist with online appointments looked just some strange creature from the future. And he did not have any appointments booked there. The internet was not yet the nervous system of a society. It was just a hobby, a curiosity, just playground for geeks. But Russia changed. Putin did not. The country moved into smartphones, apps, instant banking, digital services, cloud storage, GPS navigation. Putin stayed inside a sealed offline bubble where every daily task is handled by his staff. He does not book his own tickets, he does not order taxis. It's not like he needs them, but you get the idea. He does not need to pay utility bills through banking app. He does not need to schedule ordinary appointments. He does not need to even stand outside waiting for a map to load. He is fed, driven, breathed, printed for, protected, and served by the entire system. So for Putin, the internet is not the basic infrastructure of modern life. It is something suspicious. It is a place where protests can be coordinated, where opposition voices can be heard and spread, where foreign influence can appear, where the state loses control. To an ordinary person, the internet is maps, banking, taxes, work, family messages, photos, documents, and payments. To Putin, it is just a threat environment. And that difference is enormous. Senior officials and aides around him may understand the internet better, but they are not the final decision makers. The final decision maker is a man whose personal life has remained offline since the era when Windows XP looked modern. I think this was the coolest operating system. What do you think? Let me know. It was sustained life when printed folders mattered more than digital dashboards, and when the internet was something weird that people used just through these dial-up modems. And this explains why the state can cause such massive inconvenience without fully understanding it. Putin may believe he is putting pressure on foreign platforms, VPN users, opposition activists and hostile networks, but in reality he is creating problems for simple drivers, pensioners, office workers, students, small businesses, families, delivery services, and just everyone else who depends on stable mobile internet. Literally everyone else. This is why the current internet crisis is not just a technical story, it is a leadership story. It shows what happens when the ruler's personal world separates completely from the country he rules. Russia lives in 2026. Putin, in many ways, still lives in 1999. And when a person from 1999 controls the digital life of a country in 2026, the result is obviously not stability. The result is damage and a country going backwards. Now here's where things get tricky, because staying in power for decades does not just make a leader more authoritarian, it also makes him more detached. The longer someone rules from inside a protected bubble, the less he understands what normal people actually use, need, fear and depend on. Putin's Russia became highly digital in everyday life, but the political leadership became more isolated and more suspicious. The public moved forward, while the top of the system remained mentally tied to printed documents, closed briefings, old security instincts, and the belief that uncontrolled communication is dangerous by nature. This is exactly why internet restrictions can feel so irrational to ordinary people and so logical to the state. Ordinary people see the internet as infrastructure, the state sees it as a battlefield. Ordinary people see VPNs as a tool for access and privacy. The state sees them as a way around control. Ordinary people see mobile internet as something required for work and life, while the state sees it as something that can be limited when politically necessary. And that is the real problem. Once a government starts seeing normal infrastructure as a threat, it becomes capable of damaging its own society while claiming to protect it. There is a strange historical comparison even. In 1944, Henry Morgenthau Jr., I guess I pronounced it wrong, basically the US Secretary of the Treasury, proposed turning Germany into an agrarian country to prevent it from starting another major war. Whether someone agrees with that plan or not, the logic was simply clear. Weaken a country by rolling it simply backward. But when a country's own leadership starts rolling its own country backward, that is something much darker. Because what does it mean when the state damages the achievements of its own people? What does it mean when a country achieves such level of progress that it sends the first man in space and then fears the exact progress as something that can destroy it? It means the government no longer understands the society it governs. Putin's world seems to be made of printed papers, official folders, all the security phones, meetings, I don't know, people who bring him whatever he wants to hear, before he even asked for it. But in that world, the internet can look very optional. It is. It can look like a noisy zone full of foreign influence, activists, rumors, enemies, opposition leaders. It does not look like the place where millions of ordinary people simply live their lives. That is why the comparison to a barbaric occupier feels harsh but meaningful. A person who does not understand the value of a city may loot it instead of governing it. A person who does not understand the value of the internet may restrict it instead of advancing it. If the leadership sees only danger and not function, only dissent and not daily life, only controlled problems and not economic value, then destruction becomes easy. And this is what we are witnessing. The Russian state wants digital convenience, payments, surveillance, digital services, digital control in general, but it does not want the openness that makes the internet useful. It wants the benefits of modern technology without the freedom that comes with the same modern technology, which is pretty much impossible. And that contradiction cannot last forever. Even Putin's supporters started seeing it and openly voicing their concerns. Let's talk about it in more details in our final chapter. Here is the part that matters the most, at least politically. By damaging the internet, the Russian government is destroying one of its own most useful propaganda arguments. For years, regime supporters could say, yes, Russia has problems, yes, the political system harsh, but just at least look how convenient life is. Look how good the apps are, how fast the internet is, how easy banking. Just look how Russia is ahead of Europe in terms of at least daily digital services. Well, that argument worked because it was real. People could compare Moscow's instant payments and taxi apps with German paperwork and cash-only restaurants, and then feel that at least in this one area Russia was modern, efficient and ahead. But that argument is collapsing right now. You cannot brag about being a digital superpower while mobile internet becomes unreliable. You cannot boast about advanced services while forcing people to search for VPN workarounds. You cannot simply celebrate online convenience while blocking and breaking the tools that make that convenience possible. And this creates a deeper trust problem. Modern digital life depends on one basic assumption: the system will work tomorrow. Businesses build online processes because they assume that the connectivity will remain. Drivers rely on GPS because they assume maps will load. People stop carrying cash because they assume digital payments will work. And once that assumption breaks, people become more defensive immediately. They start thinking about backup plans, and this is especially damaging for a regime that presents itself as a source of order. Putin's system has always depended partially at least on the idea that it may be restrictive, but at least it is stable. It may not be free, but at least it works. But if life stops being convenient because of the state itself, then the deal starts looking way worse. People may tolerate many things when the system delivers stability, but when the system becomes the source of instability, the mood changes drastically. And this is why these VPN bans, mobile outages, and internet restrictions matter far beyond technology. They show that the leadership is now so obsessed with control that it is willing to weaken the same modern systems that made Russia feel functional in the first place. It is not just limiting information, it is attacking the habits of its own population. A confident government does not treat internet like a possible enemy. When a system fears the internet this much, it is not showing strength, it is showing insecurity. And that insecurity is now reaching ordinary Russians through the most personal object in their daily lives: the phone in their hand. A country can survive slow websites, annoying restrictions, advertisements, and broken apps. But it cannot easily remain a technological success story when the person at the very top sees the internet not as a nervous system of modern society, but as a suspicious foreign gadget that should be tolerated only when it is not working. Guys, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video, because in the future videos we will keep looking at how Russia's political system, economic pressure, technological control and the war itself are all colliding in ways that the Kremlin can no longer hide. Don't forget about our Patreon, link is down below. Thanks so much, see you on Wednesday.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell.